Well, hello, writers. Welcome to episode number 56 of How Do You Write? I'm Rachael Herron, and I am thrilled that you're here. I am much more awake and alert and alive than I was the last time I talked to you, which was 2 weeks ago. I didn't put out a show last week, and guess what? I didn't even apologize for it. It has just been a month. I believe that I have told you that, but camping, out of country, family death, medical procedure, and 2 migraines in the last few weeks have all, they left me really flat. So I recorded that episode couple weeks ago, and this is the next one. And I usually feel kind of guilty when I don't put out a podcast. I feel like I need to tell you all why and like make sure it's on Facebook and make sure people aren't worrying about the show. But I realized that this is my job. I get to do it the way I want to do it. And last week I needed a break, but I am feeling so much better. And I have a great show for you today. I talked to Fiona Maazel, who is fantastic to talk to. You are really, really going to get a lot out of the episode, I know. And I also kind of gave her some new questions that I haven't been asking on the show before. I've moved some questions around. I'm adding some more thanks to your great help. I asked a few episodes ago, like, what should we shake up now that it's been going this long, this podcast, more than a year now. And I got some really, really great answers. If you don't hear your question that you gave me, I might still be working it in. I got some excellent questions. So that was fun to talk to her with the new lineup of questions. I really enjoyed talking to her. And a little catch up from what's going on around here. I'm back at the page, which is fantastic. I don't think that I had ever taken so long away from writing new words. Of course, I've been revising and I've been writing nonfiction and essays and that kind of thing. But I hadn't had my hands in the fiction world for more than a month, I would say, probably 5 or 6 weeks. I just hadn't been in there. And it had been making me crazy, as you guys have probably heard in my voice in some of the episodes. So I'm back into the thriller. I'm trying to pull off an ending. And I got to tell you, taking a month off was really good for the work, because before I took that month off, I really thought that I just didn't have a book. I was 2/3 of the way done, and I've just been stuck there. And the last time I had looked at the last time I had written in my notebook, my plotting notebook, basically I'd come to this conclusion, like, this whole entire book is jacked and I need to throw out the entire premise and start over. And when I got back to it this week, I realized, oh, no. I just need to do some tweaking, some character motivation work, a little bit of back plot issues to be resolved. And suddenly I had the brain cells available to me to figure out what those answers were and to push them a little bit further and make them more interesting and deeper and mean more. And God, it just feels really good. My mojo is back, and my mojo doesn't normally stray too far away from my desk. I can usually lay hands on my mojo, and to not have it there for a while was really distressing. So getting some good words, getting some good work done, that feels great. And the other thing that I did is I turned down an awesome job. A university, which I shall not name, came to me because, they're a good university and I don't want to malign them by what I did. But they offered me a job as a subject matter expert for helping develop their MFA curriculum. And I was so flattered and so excited and thought this would be great for my CV. And every single step of the way, every single piece of paperwork that I did, I just felt this emptiness in the pit of my stomach. I just didn't want to. That doubt, and just my gut was saying, this isn't for you. But my brain was clearly saying, this is absolutely for you. This is great. What an opportunity. This will be so interesting. And then I wrote about it in my latest Patreon essay. So if you want to get the Patreon essay about procrastination and what procrastination can mean, and how I deal with procrastination myself, you can get that for as little as $1 over at patreon.com/Rachel. That's all I will say about that. Thank you to my patrons who support me. It means the world. But in that essay, I wrote about the letter that I wrote myself from my future self. And I know that sounds woo-woo and hippie and all of that, but I really wanted to find out what the person in my future, who is me, thought about this decision I was having such a hard time making. Like, I just could not bring myself to sign the contract. I really couldn't. I just kept putting it off for days. And it didn't feel like depression. It didn't feel like I was confused. It just felt like my gut was saying no, 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 no. And that future self told me some things like, number one, it wasn't enough money for the amount of work they would want me to do. It was a ton of research that was going to take time directly away from my fiction and my nonfiction. And basically my future self told me to take care of my presence. My future self told my present self to take care of my future self. Now we've gone full California. I apologize for that. But it really worked, and I'm super proud of myself for turning down some money, because I'm always scratching for scratch. I always want to make more cash on the side. Diversified income, all of that. We're writers. It's hard to make money, but I am proud of that decision. I'm going to be teaching 2 courses this semester. One at Berkeley, one at Stanford, and in the fall, and I'm just finishing up a fantastic course that I have had at Berkeley this summer, which was developing the novel. I had the best students. We had the best time. Sometimes classes just really gel, and this one really, really did. So that's fantastic. So I'm not stopping teaching, but I don't need to be a subject matter expert. I need to be a subject matter expert in my own life, in my own writing. So I feel pretty good about that, y'all. And that is just about my update. Please enjoy the interview with Fiona Maazel. I know you will. Please get to your own writing. Carve out some time for yourself this week. Don't let another week go by. If you haven't written this week so far, write a sentence. Write 2 sentences. I don't care. Just write something. I know you can do it. And thanks as always for listening. Talk soon. Okay, well, I could not be more pleased today to have Fiona Maazel on the show. Hello, Fiona.
Wow, you pronounced my name right and everything. Amazing.
I did a little research.
You did your homework.
Like gazelle. Yes,
That's
yes.
right.
Let me give you a little introduction for those who might not know you. Fiona Maazel is author of the novels A Little More Human, Woke Up Lonely, and Last Chance. She's the winner of a 2017 Guggenheim Fellowship and the Bard Prize for Fiction. Her stories have appeared in Conjunctions, Harper's, Ploughshares, Tin House, and Best American Short Stories 2017. Congrats on that. That's
Thanks. Best
super
American
cool.
is coming in October. So it hasn't quite happened yet.
I actually knew that from another friend. So that's just knowing that your story is in the Best American.
I know, I'm so excited.
Oh my God.
It was great.
She has taught in the creative writing programs at Brooklyn College, NYU, Adelphi, Princeton, Syracuse, Columbia, and the University of Leipzig, Germany, and is currently the director of communications for a legal nonprofit, Measures for Justice. And she lives in Brooklyn, New York. Again, welcome.
Thanks. That bio makes it sound like I get fired a lot.
No, I actually thought it just makes you sound really awesome. Like
Yeah, either I get around or I just get canned. I teach a class and they're like, she's out of here.
I don't know. Whenever I teach a class, that means that I have taught there,
Yes.
Currently, I am teaching at Berkeley and Stanford, but for the rest of my life, I will have taught at Berkeley and Stanford.
Yes, that's right.
You understand.
Lucky you.
I know. It's pretty cool. Well, I was telling you before we got on the line that I came to you through Wendy McClure, who's been on the show before, and I heard your story on This American Life, and then I was just super intrigued by this voice of yours that you have, and I have been reading A Little More Human, which I've been loving, and your handle on the absurd and the profound at the same time is something that is so delicious. It really is kind of the ridiculous and the sublime all at once and beautifully told. So I'd like to encourage listeners to go out and grab the new book, which is fantastic. And I'd love to talk to you a little bit about your process.
Sure.
So what is the best time of day for you to write, and where do you end up writing?
I gotta say, I was thinking about that question. I feel like implicit in that question is a kind of assumption or premise that there is such a thing as a best time or a worst time or a best place or a worst place.
Tell me
I gotta
more.
say, I mean, I've just never been spoiled like that. I remember I did once meet a writer who basically got her husband to kind of redecorate and redesign the entire house so that she could have this sort of feng shui writing spot. And I thought, wow, I cannot believe that she kind of sandbagged her husband, or she hoodwinked him into thinking that this is what a writer needs. I mean, I remember that Joe Krement's beautiful book. I think it was called like A Writer's Desk. I remember E.B.
Yes,
White had this amazing place to work. And no doubt it absolutely helps. You know, if you can have a serene, quiet, beautiful place where you can just look out the window and look at a lake and, you know, have no distractions, that is the ideal. And, you know, if you're lucky enough to get to a writer's residency or like a colony or an artist colony like Yaddo or MacDowell, and you have that seclusion in a beautiful place, that is amazing. And so for me, yes, that would be the best. But I mean, I live in New York City. I have a full-time job, and I have a 2.5-year-old daughter.
So you write when you write?
Like in the bathtub, if I have to. You know, like I write when I can write. You know, if I have the mental faculties, if I'm not exhausted, then I sit at my desk. Right now I'm sitting in like a tiny little desk in the tiny corner of my apartment. You know, what do I need? I do need a computer. I cannot write by longhand anymore. I just cannot. Okay. I need a computer, and a solid surface would be nice. But I can write, you know, in a cafe. I can write on a bus. I can write, you know, wherever you put me, I can work. All I need is just to be left alone. And that is actually much more challenging than time of day. So if I'm writing at night, it's just because that's when everyone else is like shut down and I can just do my thing. But I don't particularly prefer writing at night. I'm tired.
Yeah.
So
I think
it's really more about,
I think that's a great answer. And especially the thing about being away from people. I recently, just last week, I bought a desk, a little desk to attach to my steering wheel, because I was trying to rack
okay, wait a minute.
Yeah.
That just sounds so dangerous.
I have a smart car, so I actually have to be parked when I use it because I need to be far enough away. But I was just kind of sitting here thinking, like, my house is loud. My wife and I have a lot of animals, and I'm lucky enough to have the home office. But then I was racking my brain trying to think, like, where can I go that's always quiet, that I don't have to talk to anybody? And I realized I have this portable office, which you probably don't have in New York.
Oh, I do. I do have a car. You're giving me ideas.
Seriously. So it's just this little plastic thing that you hook onto it, and I haven't used it yet. It's definitely aspirational, but I can picture myself driving to the beach and just writing where no one can find me.
That's a great idea. That is a great idea.
Yes, it's like it's super
that might
slim.
Have to happen to me.
Slips behind the passenger seat or next to you. Yes,
I love this. This is great. So there you go. You know, I mean, writing is less about where you do it and what mug you're holding while you're writing and what clothes you're wearing and the music that's playing. Although actually music can be relevant for some people. It's just about fiercely guarding.
Yes.
You know, you have to be really, I think, aggressive about kicking everyone out of your space and just doing what you have to do. That happens.
Speaking of music, do you? I don't actually use music anymore. I found myself that I can't. Do you use music when you write?
You know, it really depends. I mean, I have a complicated relationship to music when I work. My last novel, not A Little More Human, but the one before that, Woke Up Lonely, I was listening to a lot of Nick Cave, like obsessively. I was listening to a lot of music about loneliness, and so I might listen to this music, but I can't do it at the same time. I can't listen to music with lyrics and write at the same time, because then I just start listening to the lyrics. I can listen to classical music though, and write, because I don't have to sort of tune out the language in order to focus on what I'm doing. And so often I find that helpful. But yeah, I mean, I listen to music if I feel like it's going to put me in a particular state of mind. You know, if I need to find a way to shut out everything that's happened to me during the day, or there's kind of chaos swirling around and I need to just focus, a lot of times music will help me sort of double down on the work. But I tend not to listen. I cannot listen to music I really love, especially like Leonard Cohen. I'm obsessed with Leonard Cohen. I love Leonard Cohen. And I think his lyrics are he's brilliant. And, you know, people sort of poo-poo his lyrics and his poetry. And I mean, I get it. But the lyrics and the music together, you know, I really want to listen and then forget it. I'm not going to sit down and write. I'm just going to listen to Leonard all day. So
nothing wrong with that. How do you celebrate finishing a project?
Well, it depends what you mean by finish, really. I mean, nothing ever really, it's very anticlimactic in some ways, because you sort of finish, you know, you turn in your last pass and then you feel like I'm done. But then, there's page proofs, and then you're like, oh wait, I don't like this, I don't like that.
Let's say the very first draft, the end. When the book is as complete as you can get before you get into revision.
Okay, well, I would say I celebrate when the book is published.
Oh,
because
okay.
at this point I have enough experience to know that it's not over.
Yeah.
I'm like, yay, I wrote a draft. Okay, back to work. It lasts 35 seconds. It wasn't like my first novel. I was like, oh my God, I wrote a novel. That thrill, wonderful as it is,
great feeling.
Yeah, it was wonderful. It's always wonderful, but I also know that for me, writing is revision. That's where the real work is. So, there's some sense of satisfaction that I actually got the words on a page. And I think this time I'm working on something new, and it's so hard now to get time to write that if I miraculously manage to pull out a novel, it really will be cause for celebration of a different kind. But yeah, I celebrate when a book comes out.
How do you do that? Do you go out to dinner with friends?
I do my one-legged happy dance. It just depends. I don't have any rituals. You can see I'm really easygoing over here. I think maybe I did. I think I went out and did karaoke with some friends of mine. And mind you, I do not like karaoke, and I'm appalled by karaoke. I've only done it maybe one other time, and it was horrifying. But she finished her dissertation, it was her dissertation, and so we celebrated together. It was something to do. But I don't stand on ceremony. I had a book party for my first novel. I had a big book party. My second book, I had a kind of also a big event, but it was at a store, but it was really fun. And my third book, I was like, let's go out to dinner, Mom.
I think it was Zadie Smith who says that she, when she finishes a book, that she feels really good for about 4.5 hours, and then everything goes back to normal.
That sounds about right.
Right, doesn't it? Yeah.
That sounds 4.5 hours is luxurious.
That's a long time. Exactly.
Yeah. But I am not dismissive at all of the accomplishment. That you can get it done always feels incredible. Even if just because the delight of having finished something is I don't know, what's the word? Maybe not so much diminished, but certainly mitigated by the kind of dread, not just of its reception, but of, how you feel about it and what you have to do and is it really any good. Even still, it's always just a thrill to be able to do this work, and to be able to keep doing it is the best part.
For me, it's always a relief too that I find that I managed to pull this off, because 2/3 into a book, you always know that this book is the worst thing that's ever happened to the world,
right,
and you will not succeed.
Yes.
So yeah.
There is that, but there's also just the final point. For me anyway, and this might be because, I'm just sort of nerdy in this way, but for me, actually, the most fun part is actually in the doing. When it's going well, there's no greater feeling. Even when it's going horribly, your mind is engaged in a way, it's stimulated in a way that's super exciting. When you're done, you're also kind of like, now I have to give it to a editor and a publisher, and I have to do all this stuff. Like, the worst part of writing, I think, is in some ways happens once you're done. Even if the book does tremendously well,
Yeah, absolutely.
It's just not as fun.
Absolutely. So do you love revision or hate revision? Or are you in the
I like it. It's a challenge.
Yeah.
I always feel thrilled when in fact, 2 seconds before you called me, I was writing, I had 5 minutes. I was like, I'm going to write a sentence. And I went in and I saw something and I was like, this is hideous, and then I feel kind of a certain thrill when I can make it better.
Yeah.
Find a new way in. It's also challenging. I've worked with some great editors, and they've really pushed me ferociously, and they've kind of forced me to raise the bar and to clear bars I didn't think I could clear, and maybe I still haven't, but they certainly challenged me. And I like a challenge.
I like editors who make me cry, and I'm not exaggerating.
Fair.
If I think that I can't do it and then I do it, then they're always right. They're always exactly right.
They're always right. They're always right. I hate that. They're always right.
Me too. What is the absolute best or worst writing advice you've ever been given?
Okay, I think that the advice did not actually come in the form of advice, not really like a declarative sentence, but more in the form of a question, which I actually got. I was a very young writer, and it was a sobering question, and it came from the absolutely wonderful writer Jim Shepard. He had read maybe 150 pages of my now novel in a drawer.
Oh.
And it's all right. And I remember him reading it, and he was like, well, this is all fine and well, but, so what? And I was like, so what? Oh my God. This was it was sobering, and I never forgot it.
Yeah.
And now my so what is sort of internalized. I don't really have to ask myself at this point, well, so what? But it was the best piece of advice in some way as I ever got. And I always talk about this with my students that, your fiction, it's not enough to be clever. It's not, if you're smart and you're clever, and even if you're writing great sentences, if your project is not staked in something bigger, if you're not really looking at the big questions, if you don't have a kind of emotional context and emotional predicament, kind of the profundity that is often executed when you have really meaningful tension at play in your work, if you're not kind of getting in there, then you got nothing. You got nothing.
I love that.
I think about this all the time. Make sure that, my work is staked in something that matters, and, that I'm trying to do something with this work. Finally, we're trying to change lives, save lives, whatever platitude you want to adopt, but you still got to remember that, you're aiming high. So,
and that also, at a very base level too, that keeps readers turning pages, because I will no matter how beautiful a story is, no matter how lyrically it's written, if there's not a so what, I'll just stop reading. And
exactly.
There's too many books in the world. So, there's not
this
too
is
many.
True. This is true. And there's, it's the equivalent of just sort of make me care.
Exactly.
And I read a lot of stuff, and, it's smart, and often it's very droll and even inventive. But even still, at a certain point, I'll get maybe 20, 30, 40 pages in. I'm like, okay, but, what else you got?
Right.
So, the bar, like I said, the bar's high.
If I don't ask that, it doesn't occur to me to ask it. I'm just dragged through the book. That's
right.
That's what I look for when I'm reading. Can you, along those lines, can you share a craft tip of any sort?
Yes. I have to pick one. I think a really good one, and this doesn't come from me, but I can't remember where it came from, but I think about it a lot, is that you should really, especially, when you're doing drafts, and especially when you come into revision, is that you really should try to exhaust your worst ideas. You should try to outlast them in some ways. So whenever, I think we all sort of sit down, most of us are not instantly inventive, from the get-go. Yeah. Sort of sit down. A lot of people think, first effort, best effort, but that's really not the case at all. It's usually first effort, worst effort.
Exactly.
So, you sit down and someone's like, write a story about someone barbecuing, and we're going to be like, okay, so we get your barbecue and we get your briquettes, and I use the word briquette instead of coal, which means I'm doing something that has mouthfeel, briquette. But it's like, okay, great. What else you got? This works in tandem with so what, but it's also just about we're all kind of, I think, maybe immediately a little bit banal. But that doesn't mean we all don't have the capacity to be hugely inventive and creative and to put our own spin on things. You just have to wait it out sometimes.
Yeah.
And so that means being patient, and not being complacent, with your first effort.
It's so hard. That's so hard.
This is amazing.
It's such great advice, but it's also so hard to be complacent and that's good enough. I fight with myself a lot with good enough. I need to be better than good enough. But good enough is so comfortable, and good enough is not making your bed in the morning. And
I love good enough.
Me too.
I love good enough for almost everything.
Good enough is Netflix and your second favorite flavor of Ben and Jerry's. That's awesome. But that's not what I want my writing to be. That's fantastic. Thank you. When you have self-doubt or dark days, how do you deal with it?
Luckily, I've been writing long enough now that I know there are good days ahead. So and I just power through. It's just, when I was younger, it was a lot harder. I used to despair really aggressively. And I still have, and actually, I don't know why I'm pretending like I'm such an old lady because, sorry, my eyes itchy. Because in 2010, I think I was at McDowell, and I was writing the very beginning of this book that just came out. I started it in 2010, then I took a 3 or 4 year break from it and did something else, but I could not come up with anything. And I have this one page that I wrote there, and it's the most despairing document. I still look at it now, and it's like, I've got nothing to say. I have no ideas. There's nothing going on in my head. I'll never write again. And it just goes on and on and on. It's just really desperate, miserable. Now, I was in some ways, I'm not sort of proud of it, but I'm just sort of horrified, and I feel for that girl. I really feel for her. I really thought that was it. I'd written 2 books, and nothing else was ever going to come again.
Oh.
And I still continue daily, to feel that way. But now I know that you just, You keep writing, you keep living in the world, keep your ears open, your eyes open, you allow yourself to feel every day what's happening to the people around you, feel your own inner life, just be receptive and available to the world around you, and something will happen, and then you just keep writing sentences. I had a year when I was, again, maybe 10 years ago, 50 years ago or something, and I just didn't write at all. I just could not get anything. I was also, incredibly depressed, but that's a whole other story.
Those two things are often connected. Yeah, they really, really do.
And I couldn't. I was just like, that's it. I got nothing. But slowly, if you really love this work, you just claw your way back. You just write hello, and you write, hello, he said, and and he was wearing a red shirt, and like nobody wants to read this, but it doesn't matter,
right?
And
right.
you just fight through it, and I have techniques and tools I can use. I get up, I go do something else, I get online, I look at the internet, I read the paper, I go for a run. Sometimes my best running happens when I'm swimming or running. It's how I work out problems. Sometimes just staring at the computer screen is not helpful. But again, this experience is wonderful because it does make me feel sort of confident. But, I remember sort of the Humean argument that always said just because the sun has risen every single day until now is no guarantee that it rises again tomorrow. So in some ways...
That's enough to strike fear into my core.
Yeah. In some ways, I'm always mindful that all of this experience is shit. And it might well be the case that today is the day. That's it. I'll never write again. You just have to sort of try and talk yourself out of the stuff and
then you wake up and you do it all. I really love your verb claw. I think a lot of what we do is clawing.
A lot of clawing, a lot of groping, a lot of clawing.
Yeah. On really, really bad days, if you couldn't write, or you just gave it up, you gave into that feeling, but you could be anything, have any profession, what would it be?
I'd be a mechanic.
Why? I love that. I wrote a book about a mechanic.
Really?
A female mechanic, yes.
I would be a mechanic. Though I think I would like to work on old cars. I don't like all the computerized stuff. I'd like to get my hands dirty.
Yeah.
I like the smell of gasoline in a way that's almost perverse.
Me too.
Yeah, it's just an amazing smell.
It's right up there with Sharpies.
And I like, I've always, when I was a kid, I used to take apart, my mom's or my dad's stereo system, much to their horror. I'd take apart anything. I always liked electronics in some ways, or just... I like tinkering, I used to take apart clocks. And so I think that I've always been interested in cars, how they run, how they work. And I think, I would love to be able to just pop open the hood and look at this thing and try to figure out, how does it work and what does it need? And
there are so many parallels to be drawn there, with what we do with novels. You really are the mechanic of this novel, and you are going and finding what doesn't work and fixing it and trying something else. And but all you need is spark and gas, right? You need
exactly. And it's it's manual. I'd like to be able to use my hands. Yeah. It's people will say things like, well, it's not cerebral. I mean, in some ways it is cerebral. It's not kind of an intellectual exercise, but you have to use your brain to figure out, diagnose a problem. And in that way, it's not dissimilar from, say, being a doctor. All the parts are working together, and you have to take some kind of holistic approach. But all of that said, I know absolutely nothing about cars. Nothing. So if you just left me with my car, and I just the other day, heat seemed to be coming from the steering wheel, and I was like, oh my God, what does this mean? I have to
heat from the steering wheel?
Yeah, isn't that weird? I know, it's something that's just not normal.
Was it okay?
I might have made this up. I don't know. I started Googling heat from steering wheel shaft Subaru, and just nothing came up. Nothing at all. Okay, I was like, is that the transmission? I mean, I don't know anything.
I hope that remains to be okay with your car.
We'll find out.
I used to have a VW that if I turned the, no, it was my old Fiat, that if I turned the left turn signal, the horn honked.
Oh, nice.
It's just one of those things. I like those little things.
Nice. Well, if my car totally craps out, then I'm really going to have to buy the desk. And then I'll just sit in there and grow some, I'll grow some plants.
Up around it. Yeah. What is the best book you've read recently, and why did you love it?
Oh, you're not going to like this at all. But
I can't wait.
It depends what you mean by recently, but I am a judge for the Center for Fiction's First Novel Prize.
Yeah.
And I've been reading so many books for this prize.
None of them are published.
I cannot. No, they're all. Most of them
they're
are
all
published.
out. Okay.
Not all of them, but the lion's share of them. But of course, I cannot tell you which of them I'm most excited about. And that's all I've read for the past maybe 4 months. I mean, it's really been just kind of a marvelous and harrowing undertaking. But I will say, I mean, part of the reason I wanted to do it is because I love the Center for Fiction. It's here in New York. they do such great work, and also because I just sort of felt a little disconnected. Like, what are people writing about now? The first novels, what's on that? What are people doing?
Yeah.
So I thought this would be a great way to find out, like, what my peers, especially sort of maybe not younger writers, but new writers are doing, or people who are at least new to novel writing. And that's been really interesting. And some of these books are like off the charts good.
Oh, that's so exciting.
Some of them are great. There's so much talent out there. And that was just thrilling. And I did read, a handful of books that I was super impressed with or by for multiple reasons. And that was sort of, in some ways reassuring. And what I particularly liked is that some of them actually made me feel legitimately bad about my own prose writing.
That's
I was
fantastic.
Wow. I was like, dude, can I even do the things that these people are doing? And, that's always a great, and it's not so great, but it's not a great feeling. You want to be not comparing, but identifying. But it was wonderful, so I can't tell you.
Will you, once the list comes out, will you shoot me what your favorite was on the list, and I'll just link it in the show notes so people can have a gander someday in the future if they're listening to this
sure.
late?
I feel like we have a great group of judges, and I feel like we all have sort of, if not similar temperaments, we still should be able to agree, I think, because the books that are stand out are just stand out.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping, at least, watch me say that and then end up being the case that we can't agree on anything, which can certainly happen.
I'm so curious.
But I'm hoping that the short list is in fact reflects at least all the books that I love, but we'll find out.
How many people are judging?
I think there's 5 of us.
Okay. That's so cool. That's so fun.
5 of us, because there's a lot of books.
All right. I will look for that short list. That is awesome. What would you like to plug right now? Tell us about your new book and tell us where to find you.
The new book is called A Little More Human.
It came out in April, right?
It did. Notice I had to pause because I was like, what was this book called?
It's got a fantastic cover too, I have to say.
Thanks. I love the cover.
It's Grey Wolf, right?
It's Grey Wolf.
Yeah.
They're the best.
They are great.
I'd say the book, it's kind of like a little bit of a sci-fi thriller in some ways it's domestic drama. It's like domestic drama meets sci-fi thriller meets me. And you put all that together and you got something I think rather peculiar.
And add a superpower or two.
A little bit of a superpower. It's basically about a guy, who wakes up one morning with no evidence of what he did the night before, only to be presented with evidence that he assaulted a woman. And he kind of spends the whole novel trying to figure out if he did or did not do this horrible thing, and maybe more importantly, if he's even capable about it, of committing this kind of horrible crime. The book, to me, if I'm being maybe a little bit pretentious, to me, in my mind, it's all about sort of being emotionally incoherent to yourself. What happens when you just have no idea what is really transpiring in your inner life, and how much anxiety necessarily grows from that problem. I mean, everybody in the novel that kind of follows 3 characters, and all of them in some ways are reckoning with who they are and what they remember about their lives and how they use memory to construct their sense of themselves. So it kind of goes from there.
And it definitely, I will tell you that I am continuing with the book because it has such a so what for me. The so what is there in the way that I have not ever, I didn't even think to ask myself that. So
I certainly hope so. I mean, I never want to write anything that just feels frivolous, which is difficult when you're writing the kind of stuff that I write, because it's a lot of there is some absurdity there, although I'd never find my books as absurd as other people, which tells you something about where I'm at. But there are hijinks,
and I consider absurd to be that. I meant that as a compliment, obviously.
Oh, I didn't take it badly. It's okay, just good. To me, things that strike other people as absurd to me are just like, what?
That's Tuesday.
Exactly. What are you talking about? I've got a banana coming out of my ear. What are you talking about? It's every day. Come on, what's wrong with you people? And also a lot of people read the books and these people are horrible, and I'm like, no, they're not. What do you mean? Like, this is just people struggling with with themselves. This is horrible. So I don't think I'm necessarily calibrated. Maybe the way other people are. I don't know. But I will say that, yes, when you are writing stuff like I do that has a lot of hijinks and a lot of plot, it's very difficult to kind of lose your way or forget that you're actually trying to write something that matters, that addresses some kind of big questions. My new project is so unbelievably conventional that it's feeling very challenging as a result. I'm determined. Well, I'm trying to stay away from the heavy plotting and the hijinks and the absurdity. I'm like, don't go there. It's incredibly hard. But
so you're heading more for just straight up literary kind of
the straight
family traditional. Yeah.
All my books are about families, one way or other. But yeah, this one just doesn't have any conceits, no tropes. It's, and for me, that's novel. It's my only book that only has one. It's narrated by one main character, and there are no other characters that intrude. There are no other voices. There's no multiple points of view. It's just the only thing sort of mildly interesting is it has a split timeline. It's backstory, front story, but so what? I mean, that's hardly inventive at this point.
But I love that it's challenging you. I mean,
it's challenging me because it's
great.
not what I do. So for me, it feels like, well, that's, you always want to reinvent yourself, right? Every time you do start a new project, you want to see, who you are.
And they do say that happiness lies most on that line where you feel like you're almost unable to do what you're attempting to do, but pulling it off. So that's where I always try to be too. Where can we find you online?
You mean what's my website?
Yes.
Oh, you can tell how comfortable I am living in the 21st century.
You got
www. I know the internet. .FionaMaazel.com.
Great.
I'm like, I have some Twitter handle. I never tweet. The president is tweeting. He's doing enough tweeting for everybody.
He really is.
And I just saw breaking news that he basically threatened North Korea. He's basically like, we're going to blow the crap out of you if you bother us anymore.
I saw that too. It was much more enjoyable to come to the computer and talk to you than to continue looking at, this probably won't go to press because we're going to blow up.
We're going to be dead, exactly. Well, on that bright note. And I have a Facebook page, but I just have no real media online presence at all.
Good for you.
I can't go there.
Good for you.
It's not even like a moral decision. I just don't understand any of it. It's just because I have no
you
skill.
should definitely take the moral high ground there. I
can't. I want to claim it. I want to really badly, but I can't. I'm just a Luddite, I think, or just an idiot.
Oh, enjoy it. As long as you can work Netflix, man.
This I can do. I do have my thumbs.
Thank you so much, Fiona. It's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you, and I appreciate your time.
Of course. Anytime.
Take care. Bye.
You too. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.